My name is Immanivong. I'm the owner and chef of Chino Chinatown in Trinity Groves. I was born in Nong Khai, Thailand. I moved here when I was 1 year old. I am the 5th child out of 7 children, but for my mom's marriage, I'm the oldest of 3. Or for my dad's marriage, I'm sorry, I'm the oldest of 3. I'm single, I'm a single mom, and I have a 10-year-old daughter. You know, I think this career kind of chose me. Being a restaurateur is one of those things I don't think that I would have thought that I would have done when I was graduating high school and going to college, because my mom told me, she's like, you need to go into banking, you need to go into a space where there's air conditioning, it's an 8 to 5 job, and you have an office and a chair to sit in, because manual labor is hard, catering is hard. My mom, we were so poor when we were young that she would cater to make ends meet, and so my sister and I would watch her cook, and that was a time for us to bond and to really connect, and I just loved those moments, and so therefore cooking was a huge part of family for me, and it conjures up really great childhood memories as well. And so when my mom was working, my sister and I would be watching our public television shows, and we would do cook show instead of playing house. We'd pretend like we're making ramen noodle steak, ramen noodle whatever. And so I think now if there was an episode of Chopped where they use ramen noodles, I could do something really extraordinary with it. But because of what my mom and my dad told me about getting a job, being a banker, being an attorney, I was like, you know what, that's the path I'm gonna take. So I was a banker for 16 years, I did it well, but it wasn't something that I was passionate about. I loved painting, I loved using food and just seeing the joy that people had when they ate my food. So then I decided to open up a catering company about 7 years ago. And that was to teach my friends how to cook, because I had certain friends that would burn water. They literally couldn't boil an egg. So it started out with my friends and neighbors coming over and cooking at my house, and it was $20 to cover the cost of food. And it grew organically to where I was teaching residents at an apartment complex how to cook, and I was doing their resident appreciation nights, and then I got some really great clients from there to where they were like, we don't really want to learn how to cook, can you just cook something for us? And so with that, I was able to spread my wings a little bit more, grow some confidence, and then I started doing food festivals and live audiences of 500 to 1,000 people. And then they would say, hey, can you actually go on television and promote our event for us? And so I got my foot in the door and started doing some local television and really got a feel for what it would feel like to be really comfortable in your own skin and doing what you love, because it's, it exudes from, your pores. And so then I started trying out for TV shows and was almost casted for MasterChef and the next Food Network star and Chopped and all those good things. And it just wasn't the right time. And so about 3 years ago, I was casted for ABC's The Taste. One of the main hosts on that is Anthony Bourdain. And I remember being chosen and selected to fly out to LA. There was 90 people, and they were gonna funnel it down to 16 people. And it's based on 1 spoon. And I made this traditional Laotian dish called lap gai, which translates to lucky chicken. And my mom would make it on special occasion because that's what brings you luck. And so I was talking to my mom and my sister about what am I gonna make? And they said, make that dish. And I was like, no, Anthony Bourdain, if anybody would appreciate it, it would be him. And so it was like a hatch, and they would taste it, and then they had to push buttons to see if they would select the spoon. It's like The Voice with food. And I remember I got 3 X's from the other judges. There were 4 total, and the last person was Anthony. And he gave me a green check mark, and so I was over the moon excited, and I still kind of watch that episode over and over again because it once again, it brings back that good memory. I couldn't believe that he picked me for his team, and somebody that has a sophisticated palate like him, and for him to mentor me. And so that really taught me to believe in what's out there, like anything is possible. And being on the show really taught me a lot about food, a lot about my gut instincts. And my episode that I got, kicked off of was very controversial. And I'm glad it was, I wouldn't have wanted to leave any other way. And then we had the wrap, and I remember talking to Nigella Lawson, and she said, Uno, you are so creative. This is not the end of the road for you. And I know you're in banking and it's secure, but if you had a chance and do pop-up restaurants, have people taste your food, go out there and do this. And Anthony Bourdain said the same thing, where he's like, you can find somebody to do a restaurant for you. Don't do your own money, but you can find somebody to invest in a restaurant for you. You should do it, because no one's doing what you're doing. And at the time, before I left to film for the show, I remember talking to Phil Romano and not knowing if opening a restaurant is what I wanted to do, because I was like, I really wanted to be a television star. I was going to do cookware and aprons and have this really glamorous life. And I was like, well, maybe the restaurant's the way to go. I've got to prove myself. I mean, you can't taste food when you watch television. So I said, okay. So I came back and I talked to Phil, and I still had to convince him. Even though he was interested in me, I still had to cook food for him, talk about the concepts, and have him trust in what I did, because I've never had a restaurant before. I cook for fun. I'm a home chef that's had a passion that's kind of gone, like beyond my imagination. So I had to do a couple of tastings with him, and then he was like, okay, we have a spot for you, let's do it. And I think the scariest part of all of it was writing my resignation letter to Wells Fargo, to my boss. I remember crying and shaking and thinking, am I ready to push the send button? Because this is a whole new life. I thought it'd be an easy transition. It wasn't, because you come from a job, even though I was working 60, 70 hours a week, it was 60, 70 hours a week that I was accustomed to. I understood that. And having benefits, having weekends, having vacation time, getting to hang out with my daughter at night and doing homework, that was all going to go away if I selected this path. And so I did it, and I gave 3 months notice. So I was able to slowly transition my mind and kind of get my brain to understand that it's going to change. And there were a lot of changes in my life. At that time, I was moving and doing all these things, and I could tell you that if I made it through that, I think that I could make it through anything. And so at that point, I delve into opening a restaurant, understanding how to build a restaurant and how to design factors and ADA requirements and what stations things are coming out of, and ordering and PARs. I was like, oh my gosh, my brain was in overdrive, and I'm glad I did it, because it was an education, and it still continues to be. My proudest achievement is my daughter. I think that having her really gave me a glimpse of who I could be. I remember just living day to day for myself. It's like, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna do that, do this. And having my daughter made me realize that I wanted to leave a legacy behind. I wanted to do something that would make her proud. And being that I had a daughter, I wanted to show her that women are strong, and it's like, whatever a man can do, I could do too. And so I wanted to teach her the skills and the values of hard work, and that, you could take the easy route to do things, but you can also say that there are no limits to what this world has to offer. And so with me taking that leap of faith, I remember she was about 18 months or 2 years old, and I was like, no, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do it for her. I'm gonna make her proud. And every day I think that, she has more tenacity because of me, and of course her father too. But watching me, it's just like, Mom, you are like the bravest person that I know. And it's awesome. Ooh, I have so many things that I whiteboarded about 2 years ago of what I want to do. And at some point I was like, gosh, I'm kind of disappointed I haven't gotten to it yet. Like, I have my checklist. I'm the type A. I made my list. I'm going to get to this list in the next week or 2 weeks or a year. And I haven't gotten there yet, but I can say that I'm working on a couple of restaurant concepts. I have some spices that I've written recipes for that I like to launch, and some products as well, like Asian-focused products, because I feel like there's such a small space for Asian cuisine, and it's intimidating because people don't know how to use lemongrass or ginger or galanga, and it's really simple once you think about it. So I want to take advantage of that, but to get there, I really have to get Chino Chinatown running at all cylinders first before I not leave, but am able to distance myself to be able to create these things, because right now I'm so saturated into the day-to-day functions because I'm learning. And now that I have a great manager in place and a great support system in place, I really feel the next 6 months or a year I can expand a little bit more. I would say that my mom is my hero in that she taught me the value of hard work and seeing what she did every day to make ends meet. And we didn't have much, but she taught me that I had to work hard in order to get to where I am. And when I was at the bank, she was proud of me. But when I left to do a restaurant, I want to say she took a step back and said, "What are you doing?" But now I look at her and she's like, I gave her those skill sets to be the chef that she is, or the cook that she is today, and to be able to stand up and have the guts to follow her dream. Because, my mom was, she's all feisty, and I remember her not listening to anybody. I was like, I wonder where I get that from. And I look back and I think it's totally her. No one could ever tell her no. She could sell ice and Eskimo if she wanted to. And, she's taught me a lot. That you can't take anything for granted is probably the most important life lesson that I've learned, meaning that, I look at my daughter and I think that some of these things aren't by accident. I look at other people's kids, none of this is by accident. That luck is preparation meets opportunity, and you have to be prepared for whatever opportunity is given to you, but you also have to own your mistakes. And if you do make a mistake, I always say, people are all gonna make mistakes, but you just gotta fail less next time, It's like you gotta fail better, because failures are all a part of life. And if I cowered down and just gave up every time I failed, I wouldn't be sitting across from you right now. I just, it's like, okay, how can I make that better? How can I, fail better? And how can I perfect this? And not that perfect's not a good word, because I'm not perfect. But that's the biggest life lesson, is that failures are a part of life, and success is about the opportunity that you give yourself, and forgiving and having perspective on that. So as a single mom, I've never married, and so I have my the father of my child and I lived in Florida at the time. I was doing a startup at Citibank, and I was on bed rest. I remember being 28 weeks pregnant, flying back to Dallas, and I went to the doctor beforehand, and I wasn't sure that I wanted to have a baby. I was like, I don't know, this is just something inside of me, and I'll figure it out as it happens. Well, I go to the doctor, and they say, you're a high-risk pregnancy. You're going to be on bed rest in the hospital. I'm like, I feel fine. I don't know this human being that's inside of me, and they're going to be fine. They're like, nope, you have to go in. I remember bawling my eyes out and thinking, why am I in this bed? And I had no friends, no family there. I've only been living there for, 6 months. And so all I could rely on was colleagues. And I sat in the hospital, but I was in the hospital for 6 weeks. I remember how kind and caring all the nurses were. And I thought, wow, this is the card that God has dealt me. If I can survive this, I'll be okay. And then I thought, first of all, I'm not gonna die from this. Secondly, I have a human being I have to care for. And so that's when it went beyond just me. See, she said I was gonna cry. Now I'm gonna cry. And so I stayed in that bed for 6 weeks. I remember that, I'm not married and I'm not living the life that I'm supposed to live. I had this dream of having a great job and finding somebody and getting married and having a baby, and doing it alone was never what I expected. So once I had her, I moved back after 10 months. She was 10 months old, I think. And then I remember letting her dad meet her, and he fell in love with her, of course, and we were switching off days. And at some point, we went sideways about stuff, and he's like, I want full custody of her. And I took it for granted. I was like, wow, I'm sharing this wonderful human being with this person, and now we're going through a custody battle about, who's gonna care for her. And I was like, I don't care for anybody more than her. She's my first priority. And so once I went through it, because I took it for granted that he would never do something like that, and when it came down to it, I learned that I had to be a better mom. I felt that I failed as a mom if someone's going to take a child away from me. And it's like, you do all the right things, you have the great job, you have all these material things, but what it came down to was, did I really care for her enough, or did I give her enough quality time instead of going and partying with my friends? And it wasn't anything bad that I did, it was just, he thought his life was better. And so I had to take a deep look inside myself and say, how do you become a better mom, better engaged, and live up to the expectation of what this child sees in you. So with that said, of course, I have full custody of my daughter and everything else, but it was a long, drawn-out case to where everything you did, you had to second guess, like, do I need to go out tonight, or do I need to have this glass of wine, which are normal things that people do, but it shut me off so much that I actually said, okay, there is a balance to all of this. And honestly, it's made me a better person. It's made me stronger, and it's made me take a different outlook in life, because I think people think they have problems because, you know, the car in front of them stopped and there's road rage, but there are so many bigger things that are out there. So I'm not saying my problems are bigger than everybody else's, but I just have a better idea. I assess better instead of getting into the minutia. So I think that the restaurant business has been great, because I look at it and I say, okay, the problems aren't that, you know, this food didn't go out, nobody died from that, but how can I solve for this, and how can I teach my folks to see the bigger picture as I have, and those little things add up to the big things to where I am today. So hopefully that answers your question. Yeah. Balance is probably the toughest thing that I have going on right now, because there is not very much work-life balance at the moment. I understand it and I want to have it. There's just not enough hours in the day to get it all done. So the one day I do take off a week is on Sunday. I spend the entire day with my daughter. I have her every other Sunday. So when I have her, it's just she and I time, quality time. We go to the park, we do stuff, we run. And as tired as I am, I still, you know, lace up my shoes and we go do something that she wants to do. But in addition to that, she also comes to the restaurant, and you know, she gets to hostess for a couple hours, and she understands the dynamics and working with folks. And time for myself, I wake up a little bit earlier in the morning. I go for a jog, because I think physical maintenance is just as important as mental maintenance. And so I'll go for my 2-mile jog in the morning. Maybe I'll do a yoga class on the weekends at some point. But that's how I do it. And then my guilty pleasure is probably watching television, Netflix at night, and just not thinking about it or anything, just turning off the vibrations in my mind. But you know, that's what I need to work on. I think of that musical on Broadway, Ain't It Get Your Gun, you know, it's like, you know, whatever you can do, I can do better. It just cracks me up, because I think that women are now increasing in the workforce. I think there's like 30% of the workforce is now women, and they're not stay-at-home moms as they used to be anymore. I think a lot of the women that I know now are the breadwinners in the family, and their husbands are staying at home. And so I think our culture is changing, and women are strong. And being in a foodie world, even when I was in banking, it was a man's world. I come into the food industry, and being a restaurateur, a lot of chefs are men. I really want to push the limits and say, you know, there is strength in the number of women that are out there. We just need to believe that we can do this, you know, and get great mentors and feel empowered, because we're just as strong. I mean, we're mothers. I think mothers are the strongest people that are out there. I mean, we would do anything for our children. And, you know, in the labor process, oh my goodness, that was crazy. I don't think any man can survive that. So the power of women is great. And I think that there's an evolution here. And there is more women that are stepping up. And I wouldn't be surprised if we had a women president in the next decade, to be honest.